What's up, everybody? Game Crunch here. Just thought I'd make a fun video. A lot of you guys are, I don't know, maybe you're a little younger than I am, but the last video where I was talking about how games getting cheaper isn't exactly a good thing. But there's a few things here that I wanted to go over, and I figured it'd be fun if we kind of go over a few older catalogs from the 90s, early 2000s, and see how expensive games actually used to be in comparison to how cheap they are now. So let's just pull up this fun couple catalogs here and just take a look at it. And we're going to do a couple like little calculations for inflation and whatnot on how expensive things used to be. So this first one I have here is a Toys R Us catalog. It looks like, what are they saying, from 1996. So this would have been the year that the Nintendo 64 just came out. So there's this little kid here falling asleep. He wants a basketball, skateboard. It's all lame stuff. Should be video games. So here's the N64. The future is here. 64 bits of pure power. Realistic 3D graphics. Wow. Launched at $200. And I believe this is an American magazine. I couldn't find any information for where exactly these come from, but I'm assuming most of them are from the States. So if you scroll down here, they've got some games. So these are some of the launch titles. Pilot Wing 64 was a launch title for the Nintendo 64 at $60. $60 this game was at launch. That is what? Almost a third of the price of the actual console. Could you imagine? So let's do the math on that. So your PS5 is $600. And then could you imagine that the games are a third of the price of the PS5 at $200? That's the reality of what we were dealing with back then. Now you can see like the Game Boy games, they weren't too bad, you know? And I know a lot of that, some of this price inflation, and you're going to see that when I get into a few of the disc-based games, the N64 ones tend to be a little more expensive, but it's not that much more expensive. Controllers, $30. Now, I had a little inflation calculator here, so let's do this real quick. Now, this is from the Bank of Canada, but inflation all over the world is going to be pretty similar. So $50 back then is about $91 today. So this is from the mid-90s, 1995. So almost double. It's almost double. So when we go back to that catalog, almost double, you're looking almost $60 for a controller, which nowadays pretty close. So that's inflated pretty close. But you also have to look at it. Look at this, $60 for an entire Game Boy console. The console, I found this was funny. The Game Boy console is as much as a Nintendo 64 game. They're the exact same price. So is it the cart driving up the price that much if they can sell an entire console for $60? Don't know. Let's look at a couple other things. Sega Saturn, I think at this point Sega Saturn had been out for a couple of years, still going for $200. Now, Sega Saturn is a disc-based console. Look at Mortal Kombat, $52.99. Mortal Kombat 3 Ultimate. WWF, what is that? In Your House? These are probably brand new games at the time. NBA Jam, $53. So the difference between a disc-based game on the Sega Saturn and a cart-based game on the Nintendo 64 is only $7. Now you got a bunch of other games here, $48, $43, $53. Look at this. There's not a game cheaper here than $43. Controller, $35. Let's look at the PS1. Here we go. $200, same cost as the N64. But look at these games. Almost $50 for Twisted Metal 2, $42, $42, $47, $42. Mortal Kombat Trilogy, $48. It's $10, $15 of difference. So for inflation, $25 max. Here's your Genesis, another cart-based console. Now, mind you, the Genesis has been around for a while at this point. The Genesis has been out for 7-8 years at this point. They're selling it at a discount, $99. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 still going for $70. So the difference between Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 on the Sega Genesis, which is an inferior version of the game, is selling for $69.99, whereas on the Sega Saturn, $52.99. $18 difference because of the card. But if you adjust this for inflation, $52.99. With inflation, you're still looking at about a $100 game for today's money. So games back then were not cheap. Look at that, Super Nintendo, $70 for Street Fighter Alpha 2. Wow. And the console itself is only $130. Mind you, the Super Nintendo at this point had been around for 4 or 5 years. So, but these are like some of your newer games. You know, your Donkey Kong Country 3, your Ultimate Mortal Kombat, same price as Super Nintendo, $70. Got a couple games here like Donkey Kong Country that have been out for a few years, still going for $52.99. So there seems to be about a $10 to $15 difference between the cart games and the disc-based games. What do we got down here? Game Gear. Oh, Tamagotchis. Cool. Let's look at another one here. So this is a Toys R Us ad. And this is from, I believe, 1998 as well. Where does it say it? Oh, right there, 96. So this one, N64, just came out. It's $200 for the N64. There's your Game Boys again for about 60 to 50 bucks, 50 to 60 bucks. Your Super Nintendo. This is pretty much a lot of the same. Is this the same? Hang on. Did I just bring up the same freaking thing twice? I think I did. Well, my bad. All right, next one. This is your N64. So this one, I believe, is from... I couldn't find a date on this one, actually, but PlayStation's around. Dreamcast is around. So this has to be... And Pokemon Stadium's out. So this has got to be at least 99, if not 2000. Your cartridge-based games haven't really changed a whole lot since then, but they are a little bit cheaper. But then, again, you have to remember the N64 at this point is coming up to end of life because the GameCube is about to come out in about another year and a half, probably. About $50 here for your games. Your Dreamcast games, brand new Dreamcast game, sports game, $50 as well. Same price as a lot of your cartridge games. Your PS1 games, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 says it's new. They actually say new on these. So these are, these are newer titles. Newer title on PlayStation, it's $10 cheaper. Okay. Still, you adjust that for inflation at this point. And you're about an $80 game, almost $75, $80 game. Pretty crazy, but I can't believe how much of a difference there is between the console versus the game. So that's basically what I'm getting at here, that games have been kind of stagnant at that, $60 price for a very long time. And the cost of those games has gone up significantly. You have to remember, a lot of these games were made by teams of some of them are as low as like 10 people and 20 people. Mind you, they don't sell as much as they do now because games aren't as mainstream. But I mean, the difference between, hundreds of people making a game and it costing hundreds of $1 million, or the difference of 10 guys making a game in someone's office and it cost them $1 million. You know what I mean? And the difference of sales there. Maybe a modern game sold 5 million and maybe this game only sold 500,000. But mind you, there was a lot of million sellers back then. A lot of million sellers. So this is, when is this from? 1992. So earlier in the 90s. This is shortly after the Super Nintendo just came out. I believe these are a lot of Super Nintendo games that are in here. Got Pit Fighter, Super Off-Road. Yeah, your Super Type R. Turtles in Time. $60 in 92. What's the inflation there? $95. So we put it at 60. $115. The cart's not adding that much cost. And Turtles of Time was not made by that many people. And it's like, what, 10 levels? You know what I mean? So this is kind of more 92. Genesis has been out for a few years at this point. $100 for the console, not too bad. I think Super Nintendo's competing about the same here, about $100 for the console. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Games, they are already cheaper. Basically what I was getting at is that, following the trend of Helldivers or Pal World or anything like that, where you're just trying to chase a trend that, if Helldivers was able to make a good game at $50. Maybe we could make a good game and have it cost not very much to make and make it for $50. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But I mean, all these companies try and do that live service thing too, and look at how many live services keep failing over and over and over again, right? So you shouldn't try and just chase a trend. You shouldn't just be, well, maybe we can make the game for 10 million and maybe it'll sell like Helldivers. That's not why Helldivers sold and Power World sold like they did. They didn't sell like they did because of the price. That's all I'm saying. So it's cool to take a look at some of these old catalogs, and you can see how expensive some of this stuff actually was back in the day. Because as I said, I remember, like, I only really got new games as a kid, like maybe a new game for Christmas, maybe a new game for my birthday, and the rest of the year I'd probably have to save up my allowance for the whole rest of the year just to buy another game or two. And then most of the time I'd just buy used games because you couldn't, you know what I mean? For a kid to try and save up that much money, you know, was tougher back then, being a kid, being able to do that. So especially, you know, you got to buy candy and stuff too, right? You can't just spend it all on video games. So I just thought it'd be cool to kind of check that out and see some older catalogs and see what it's going for. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Very, very helps me out. Really appreciate it. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.